Headroom. Something guitarists crave. And bassists would too, if they even knew what it was. Tired Glenn Fricker joke, TM. So if headroom is so important to us, then why do we keep using dinky solid-state power amps to push our belligerent tones through our cabs and forcefully into your ear holes?
Without consent.
And that's because guitarists are afraid to think outside the box. Glenn Fricker, TM. But today, I'm gonna show you why the box is your worst enemy. Because today, we're checking out the Quilter V803 bass block. On bass, but more importantly, on guitar. Let's do it. Alright guys, hope you're doing great out there today. If this, where's the camera? There it is your first time here at my channel, my name's Kyle, and welcome to Belligerent Studios. What I do is I take all sorts of awesome high gain related guitar equipment, record it with a simple setup, and I give you the unprocessed audio on your end. Was that a wink? I don't really know what I did. So if you're into E-stand or thrash riffs, drop C hardcore riffs, and dudes that wear two lav mics, it's for science. You're in the right place. Consider hitting the like button and subscribing so you don't miss any more of my stuff. Thanks! Alright guys, so I am legitimately super excited for this video today because I've been sitting on this bad boy for a few months now. Not physically. Well, maybe. Depends on how cold it is. And the bad boy that I am speaking of is the Quilter Bass Block V803. This is a brand new, updated version of their bass block, which is essentially their clean bass power amp that they have been providing for quite some time. And you guys ask me for bass gear demos here on the channel from time to time, so obviously when they reached out and asked if I wanted to check it out here on the channel with you guys, I said yes. But it also got me to thinking about a conversation that I had with somebody. I was voicing some frustrations about another power amp that is very, very popular in the guitar space and how it's rated for a certain wattage, but the only way that you're gonna get anywhere near that wattage is by plugging it into a 4 ohm cabinet. Most guitarists have 16 ohm cabs or 8 ohm cabs, and the power drop off from 8 to 16 ohms on that particular power amp is substantial. So I have always had issues with volume and headroom, even though that power amp is rated for higher wattage than any of my tube amps. So when I was talking to this individual who is much smarter than me when it comes to electronics and probably any other subject that could ever grace this earth, he asked me if I had ever used any of my solid state bass amps as a clean power amp for something like my Quad Cortex captures. If you'd like to purchase those, the link is going to be down in the description. Or some of the pedals, preamp pedals that I have been using on the channel and in my live rig. And I actually said no, I never really thought about it. I was always worried about the wattage being way too much, basically overpowering the speakers in my cabinet. And while I am blowing my audience's mind, I am also blowing my speakers. Daddy don't want. So when I said that, this person basically said, well, with Class D power amps, unless you are cranking it, you're not getting that full wattage. It essentially scales with the volume control and basically how hard you're pushing that power amp. So even though the Bass Block V803 puts out 450 watts into an 8-ohm cabinet, such as the Mesa that we are currently using, with the volume control down low, it's not pushing anywhere near that 450 watts, so I don't have to worry about blowing up my speakers. Now, of course, when it comes to like greenbacks or like Heritage 30s or anything like that, I would definitely not recommend trying something like that on those speakers, but the Bass Block will work just fine on vintage 30s or anything that has roughly 60 to 70 watts handling per speaker on a 4x12. So yes, I love bass equipment, I love doing bass demos, but this is gonna be kind of a dual purpose demo. I'll show you the bass tones through it real quick, but I also wanna show you how this thing sounds as a clean power amp, amplifying the tones from my Quad Cortex for both guitar and for bass, because I actually think that this Bass Block is a really exciting addition to my guitar equipment arsenal for live shows. But before we get too far into this video, I have to let you guys know that I am a soulless paid YouTube shill, and I will absolutely sell every last shred of dignity for a couple bucks in my pocket. Quilter sent out the Bass Block V803 for me to share with you guys here on the channel, and they are sponsoring this video. They are paying me to share it with you guys. I feel like you guys need to know that in the sake of transparency, so feel free to take anything I have to say with a grain of salt, but just know I'm gonna give you my honest thoughts and opinions as I always do. Keep that in mind. So guys, real quick, let's run through the features and then let's get into the tones, because that's where the excitement lies here at Belligerent Studios. Across the front here, you can see we've got a couple of different switching options, passive and active, as well as a mute switch so you can get that input right if you're plugging directly into the V803, which you absolutely can do for bass. And then above that, we have the voicing switch. Up top in the modern setting, that is basically the same exact preamp as in the V800 and V802 that Quilter has done in the past, and it's essentially a very tight modern bass voicing. Flipping it down into the warm or the Q-tube settings gets you a more tube-like feel, so they say. I honestly can say I vastly prefer the way that these settings sounds, especially the Q-tube. I think it sounds excellent with both guitar and bass, but we'll explore all three in the tone demo. And then across the front here, you've got a pretty standard EQ, volume, and gain setting. But one thing that I really like about the Bass Block V803 is you can actually choose your frequency on a potentiometer here, and you have the option to either cut or boost whatever frequency that you are selecting with the mid-range frequency selection knob. My mouth turned into a pile of mush there. And that goes for all the EQ controls. You can either cut or boost. And then down below is where it also starts to get a little bit more exciting. We have two different inputs. We've got a flat input and we've got a scoop input. For my personal taste, the flat input works great for the guitar stuff. The scoop really brings the bass tones to life if you're doing more aggressive style bass tones like we do here at Belligerent Studios. We've got an effects loop here, and then we've got an headphone output jack. It basically has all the options that you want and really nothing that you don't. As far as power ratings, if you're plugging into an 8-ohm cab, you will get all 800 of those watts if you are on the modern voicing setting. If you flip down into the warm or the Q-tube settings, that will bump down to 500 watts at that 4-ohm mode. And then again, 8-ohm is gonna get you 450 watts no matter what voicing setting you're on. And then 16-ohm is gonna get you 250 watts. So if you're a little sissy and you're afraid to blow your speakies, you can plug this thing into most 16-ohm cabs that aren't greenback style speakers and have more than enough headroom to not blow your speakers. But with that being said, I'm gonna stop talking. We're gonna jump back into a tone sample with the guitar real quick. So we have my Belligerent Rev E dual rectifier with an SD1 capture out in front. That is a free capture. If you are on the Neural Cloud, find me at Thrash Damon and you can have that for free. And that is it. It's just that going out of the Quad Cortex into the flat input on the Bass Block, and then that is going into my Mesa traditional 4x12 cab with a vintage 30 in it, SM57 on the V30. So let's hear that again. I personally think that sounds really good. That's honestly, that might be the best tone that I've gotten as far as a power amp coming out of my Quad Cortex for guitar stuff. And one of the features that I probably should have mentioned when I was going over the features is this thing is insanely light. Like, it weighs, I don't know, probably under 10 pounds. Yeah, I just looked up the specs, not even close. It's 3.78 pounds. So it is ridiculously light. So if you're trying to travel light, but you still want all the power and headroom, this thing is gonna be amazing for you on both guitar and bass. But real quick, let's check out the voicing switches on this thing, and you can see how, basically how drastically they alter the tone, because it is very noticeable. So we are on Q-tube. Now let's switch on over to warm. Surprisingly, it's actually a little bit brighter, but overall pretty similar. The modern is where things get a lot different. So as you can see, it's a lot flatter in my opinion. You would really have to pull up. So with that active EQ, we have a lot of room to boost or cut our frequencies to really get what we want out of it. Nice clarity, nice headroom. It really just does lend itself to being a very flat, clean sounding power amp. And as you saw, there was a lot of range in the EQ. I barely adjusted the treble and mid-range and it sounded quite different. One thing that I do love about this, and one thing that I think sets this apart for guitarists, even though it's a bass amp, is that you have the ability to control where the mid-range is affected when dialing it up or down on the active EQ control here, and that's huge because one thing that I always feel like the solid state power amps miss is the mid-range. The mid-range is just never quite there, it's never quite right. It always seems like it's a little bit empty, and on this unit, as you can hear, it sounds full, it sounds forward, it sounds like a good guitar amp should, in my personal opinion. I want to just keep playing because it sounds so good. But yeah, if I really wanted to go in and push the mids up and make them really aggressive, we could go up to 1K and we could push it up. Or if we wanted to make this sound like a super scoopy poopy rectifier, we could pull the mid-range back. And we could dial back what frequency it affects. And that sounds very, very rectifier-ish. So the ability to shape the mid-range on this thing, absolutely incredible. So yeah, that is it for the guitar side. I'm gonna switch over to a bass amp profile here on my Quad Cortex, and we are going to switch the bass block output into my dark glass cab so you guys can hear that. All right guys, so we are on the flat input currently. We have my Schecter Omen Elite bass here, and the only thing that we have on in our entire bass signal chain is a dark glass Microtubes B3K. The amp is dialed in as you see it here. So as you can see, nice and snappy, very bright. It's got a lot of mid-range in this flat setting or this flat input, but let's go ahead, let's put it in the scoopy poopy input. I've touched nothing else on the amp. So as you can see, not only is it a little scoopier, but it's a little more aggressive on the highs. There's a little bit more low-end fill there. So yeah, we're getting a nice, aggressive, modern bass tone out of it, but what happens if we just go straight in? We're gonna turn off the micro glass dark tube. So as you can see, it is a lot flatter. These are active pickups. We are on the active input, but I'm gonna push the gain up a little bit more, and I'm really gonna scoop out some of that mid-range. So yeah, nice and clean. It's not gonna give you any crazy distorted tones or modern tones or even like that SVT breakup. It's not designed for that, but if you want a nice, clean, full mid-range bass tone going straight in, it sounds really good for that. Let's go down into the warm setting. So So a little scoopier, a little like bitier up top, a little 4 on the bottom. Finally, the Q-tube. And that, personally, if I were plugging straight in, that would be my favorite. It's got a nice bite. Let's add a little bit more treble to it. The mid-range is scooped out as much as we can, and a little bit more low end. Going straight in, that sounds awesome, honestly. That sounds really good, but the great thing about a clean bass amp like this is you can put some fun stuff in front of it and it'll sound like there's fun stuff in front of it. So we started the video off with the dark glass microtubes, but let's try a BDDI or a Sans amp. I have no idea what comes after that, and I'm not even gonna try. But yeah, as you can see, it's got that classic Sans amp kind of scoop and grit to it. Sounds really good. Let's switch to a bass that you guys are probably more familiar with, the pickup setup, because this one is a little bit out there, even though I do love how this bass sounds. But yeah, a little bit more throaty in the mid-range there. It sounds good though, but what I really want to do is I want to add one of the best bass amps of all time, and that is the Mesa Cali 400 Plus, a bass amp that I personally own and love. Classic, really scoopy, really nice sounding bass tone. So what if we wanted to switch out that 400 for another classic bass amp, like maybe an SVT type dealie? A very, very classic punk rock and metal bass tone right there. I really like it. And then finally, let's go to one of my favorite bass models on here. Check out the G800K. And again, man, I'm not pushing this amplifier at all. It's going into an 8 ohm dark glass cab, and it is super loud in the room. Oh, dude, that one actually sounds really good. I know we're kind of messing around with a lot of models on the QC, but I just wanted to show you that it not only does it recreate the models on the QC extremely well, it gives you a couple of different voicing options. It gives you that mid-shaping option, which is incredible. Tons and tons of headroom, especially if you go into a 4 ohm cab. More headroom and volume than you're gonna need for sure, even for bass and pushing a lot of low end. Again, I really like the flat and the scooped input settings on this, and the thing that I like the most, it's 699 bucks. That is insanely affordable for a well-featured 800 watt power amp that can work both equally as well on bass and guitar. Frankly, it's gonna make it on my live guitar rig as part of my backup board. What else is there to say? Nothing. Well, one more thing. If you wanna pick this amp up now, it is available at my affiliate links below. It is definitely available at Sweetwater. I'm not sure about the others, but if you guys wanna pick one of these up and help the channel out at the same time, hit those affiliate links. And of course, I wanna know what you guys think about this. What do you think about, number one, using a bass amp as a power amp for your guitar tones? And number two, how do you think this thing works for its intended purpose? A lightweight, high headroom, fully featured, clean bass amp. And yeah, if you can't tell, I had a lot of fun with this video. I hope that you did too. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. I really do wanna hear from you guys on this. I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Kyle here again. I nodded my head too soon. I'm lost. All right, I'm leaving.
You know what this wall is missing? Another amp. There we go.